Welcome to the complete animation of Gloria from Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted. It's interesting to compare Madagascar 3 with the earlier films, especially Madagascar 1, because even though there wasn't like that big of a jump in time between when Madagascar 1 and Madagascar 3 came out, there are some very noticeable improvements. It's always interesting to see, identical art style, like the characters look the exact same, but see what they can do with a few years of improvements, which is what you get with 3D animation. Like, take Gloria here. Her general design is identical to what it was in Madagascar 1, but the fine details of her character model have shown, like, noticeable improvements. Just like the texture on her skin looks better. But I think that the biggest thing that I notice is the little hairs on her face. Like, I'm pretty sure that those little black hairs, those bristles, weren't there in the first film. And you see those sorts of improvements everywhere in 3D animation, because more than any other type of animation, 3D animation is tied to the technology of the day. Like, you look at any other kind of animation, you got traditional cell animation. Snow White and the Seven Dwarves looks just as good today as it ever did, because hand-painted backgrounds and painted clear cells are a solved medium. It's like, yeah, you can do some really incredible stuff with that medium, but it's not like it has a lot of room to grow in terms of what it's able to do. And then you look at stop motion, there really isn't that big of a difference between something like The Nightmare Before Christmas and Kubo and the Two Strings. But with 3D animation, the very first Madagascar movie compared to movies that come out now, there is night and day difference. And it's all because of the steady march of technology. It's actually pretty impressive what that march of technology is able to do. It's able to make it so that the big budget animation from places like DreamWorks is able to look absolutely incredible, but it also goes the other way. It means that the lower budget stuff, the stuff that's made with, some no-name studio based in Germany, is able to pump out stuff that looks really good at a really low budget. Although I will say, I still think that low budget hand-drawn animation, even though it's all done in computers now, I think that low budget hand-drawn animation consistently looks better than low budget 3D animation. And a big part of it is, it's like that little extra mile of quality, that little extra bit of juice, that spice that you get with really big budgets just doesn't really get there. Even with the march of technology, the low budget 3D stuff just doesn't end up looking that good compared to the high budget stuff. And I think that's like really evident in something like the new Gen 5 of My Little Pony. Because you look at the movie, My Little Pony, A New Generation, or whatever it was called. That movie doesn't look bad. Like, it actually looks pretty good. Like, for a feature film, it's like, yeah, it's not the biggest budget, and it's not from a major studio, but yeah, it actually looks pretty good. But then you look at the series, and like, it's a noticeable downgrade, but I think they were using like the exact same character models that they used in the feature film. So, just an example of how budget does that. The story of Madagascar 3, I think it has some of the same issues that I had with Madagascar 2, in that if you step back and look at the story as it as it is, like, you know, the story beginning to end and you think about it, sometimes some story elements don't quite stand up. But if you actually just watch the movie and take it as it's presented, it works a bit better. And I really think that the entire like point of this story was to show the destination of their journey. Because it's like, ever since the first movie, the entire like thing is that they want to get back to New York. They want to go back to the zoo. And like the entire thing that they were building up to was that. And then when they finally did, they realized they had outgrown the zoo. It's like that was the entire like overarching narrative of the trilogy, is that these characters wanted to go back to where they were taken from, but it turns out that once they actually got there, that isn't what they wanted. And I'm sure there's some interesting life lessons there, you know. The dangers of nostalgia, thinking that the way things were so much better, but if you actually went there, maybe you'll find out that that's not actually what you wanted. So, yeah, I think that the circus element of this kind of highlights the issues in the world building that Madagascar has. Because the more that they show animals being the way they are in this world of humans, the more it seems like there is no way that these characters could ever really be that unique. Why aren't all animals like this? Like, and if they were, like, they would totally be crowding out humans for space at the top of the, you know, intellectual chain of all creatures on the earth. It worked when the cast was really small and the story was really concise in the first movie. Just saying, like, oh, here are animals from Central Park. And they're pretty smart, all things considered, and they can basically act like humans, talk like humans amongst themselves. But as the cast gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you see, like, basically every animal that they talk to is also similar intellectual prowess, yeah, it just doesn't seem. That's something that when you step back and think about, doesn't seem quite right. So one of the things that I actually don't like about Gloria's design is her fingernails. I think that her big, wide, black fingernails are more distracting than anything. It's like they Bill Watterson, the creator of Calvin and Hobbes, he had some amazing commentary in some of his collections. Like there was this one anniversary collection that had some really good commentary. And one of the things that he talked about was early on in the strip, Hobbes had paw pads not only on his feet but also on his hands. And he said, like, most of the time you don't see him because most of the time his hands aren't, splayed out towards the viewer so that they're able to be seen. But he realized that, yeah, it does make sense, he is the tiger character and having paw pads would work. But he realized that just visually it was too busy. It was too distracting. It's like there is a certain level of attention that the viewer's eyes need to be on a character's hands, and having those big black paw pads on Hobbes's hands, just like, it was too much. And I feel the same way about Gloria's fingernails. I think that making them a bit smaller, making them more of a slightly lighter shade of black, just doing something to make it so that they don't stick out as much would have been an improvement. I will say one thing about Madagascar 3. They did a really good job of showing off spectacle for this second part of the circus. Like, this is the visual highlight of the movie. Yeah, that just seeing the penguins right there, that reminds me of another issue I have with this movie. What is happening with, like, all the smacking of Private and him, like, getting this blank forward stare? I feel like I meant to understand exactly what's happening there, and the implication doesn't really belong in a kid's movie, to put it lightly. Coming back to New York is actually pretty cool because this is like a scene from the first movie that, you had a good bit of time in the Central Park Zoo, and coming back to it here, it's interesting to see just the sheer level of detail that is increased. I have to hand it to DreamWorks. They did not reuse too many assets from the first movie. It's like they made new assets that were there to basically be an improvement on the old ones. Which makes me think about the early days of 3D animation. You look at Pixar with like Toy Story 2. In Toy Story 2, they had so many assets that were reused from other things. Like the Pizza Hut truck was reused because it still fit with the art style of the second movie. Like Toy Story 2 wasn't that big of a visual upgrade from Toy Story 1, and so they were able to use that. And then the cleaning man was Jerry from Jerry's Game, same character model. But modern 3D animation doesn't really do that. Like, or at least I don't see it. I don't see all of these reused assets. Like, the biggest use of reused assets I can think of right now is Zootopia Plus, which makes sense. Like it's an anthology of things that happened during the events of the first movie. And it makes me curious. What are they going to do with Zootopia 2? Zootopia 2, is it going to reuse any asset from the first movie? And I really hope not. I would really hope that Zootopia 2 would be able to have a fresh pass on every 3D asset in the movie. I've heard rumors that there will be a Madagascar 4, and honestly, I hope they're not true. I don't think that every series needs a revival. I think that Madagascar ended on a well enough note. They're like, what would the story even be about? I don't know. Thanks for watching.